she is going to be telling us all about Word Kitchen, which is the organisation that she's founded with David Lloyd. And I'm interested to find out more because I have been involved with Word Kitchen. I've done a few of their events, so really keen to hear the background from Pippa. And so thank you Pippa for coming in and
pleasure.
Telling us all about Word Kitchen. Can we start with what is it and why did you set it up?
Yeah, that's a good place to start. So, Word Kitchen is an opportunity for writers, prose and poetry, to share their work and build community together.
Right.
We also run workshops, so there's a sense of encouraging writers, whatever stage they are at on their journey, to get together and share their work. And I think speaking work aloud is a brilliant way of kind of publishing it, and getting immediate feedback.
Totally agree with that. I mean, when you write something, it sounds completely different in your head to if you actually read it out, and if you get somebody else to read it, it sounds even different again. So totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So how did it all get started? Where did the idea come from?
Okay, so interestingly, in that time pre-COVID, David and I met both doing their creative writing masters at Exeter University, and got on well together. We were in contact with Grace Palmer, who set up Novel Nights, and at that time, Novel Nights was active in Bristol because that's where Grace was living, and she'd started a kind of satellite group in Bath. And we met with Grace about bringing Novel Nights to Exeter, which we did. We had a couple of fantastic events, and then COVID struck.
Yeah.
So, do you remember that bit when none of us knew what Zoom was? And
Yep. Yeah,
so
and we all thought it would be over in a couple of months.
Yeah. It'll all be over by Christmas. Yeah, so we'd stepped into that space, and then through that pandemic time, I was running my own creative writing groups online, and we were doing Novel Nights cafes on a Saturday morning, and that was so instructive because I was very against the idea of how's that going to work? How do you have a sense of community in something that's sitting on a laptop? But actually it really worked, and worked surprisingly well for the writing workshops, because it meant that I could have, any one time on my screen, I could be working with writers I had someone in Morocco, Gaza, Syria, and the woman in Syria, her Wi-Fi was a lot better than the guy in Clisthoniton. So there were opportunities that arose then, and then after that, and Grace was focusing on different things, and David and I were keen to continue in that spoken word space. David lives in Sidmouth. I'm kind of Tean Valley and onto Dartmoor, but he used to go to Brook Kitchen for a nice coffee. And Angela, who runs that, is an artist herself and runs a fine art printing company, etc. And she was keen to have more events in the evening. So that is how we started, and how the name came about. So, which was a happy accident, as Bob Ross would say, because that metaphor of a kitchen and cooking and making and recipes and process and sharing food, building community, just worked incredibly well.
And it has a parallel with writing. Creative.
Absolutely.
It's a very creative.
In so many ways, and that you work on things and you perfect them, and you taste someone else's lasagna and you alter your own in response. So that's really worked for us as the name. So that's where the event started off, in Budley Salterton, and continue, but we're also doing at least as many, and probably it will end up being more events in Exeter.
At the Phoenix.
At the Phoenix, which is the workshop space, is a lovely venue, and there's the bar. It's a different atmosphere. Brook Kitchen works well because people sit and have a drink and have food. really nice space there, but it's difficult to get to. I mean, we were always amazed in the first year or so that people were coming from Taunton, South Petherton, Dartmoor, this real kind of geographic spread. But if you haven't got a car, it was really tricky.
Yeah.
So and the Phoenix works fantastically for that.
It's a short walk from St David's.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so having sort of created the word kitchen with David, let's just sort of look a little bit more into you and your background. You have a background in creative writing, and I actually understand that you started on the thinking about the efficiency of people's own stories as a tool for social change. Is that something you can tell us a little bit more about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, I guess, as a kind of core belief, which is mine and which, you know, David shares, but through all of my work, which after my degree was in the peace movement and then filmmaking, and then I went into teaching. But I think always at the heart of that has been a real belief in that if we're listened to, if we're given a voice, and we're allowed to tell our story, then we realise that we can author that story. That the very act of speaking and writing is an ongoing metaphor for the reality that we can change our lives. We can make ourselves the main character. We can change the ending. We can revisit the past and look at it from someone else's point of view and have a different understanding of it. Which is, I mean, when I was doing the masters, that's what I focused on in my dissertation. And when I first moved back to Exeter, which is when I did the MA, I set up a creative writing group in Exeter Prison.
Oh, wow.
And so that was, you know, what a brilliant experience that was, and was proof on a weekly basis of the power of writing some words down. And also, as we started off saying, Jonathan, that sense of when you then speak your words aloud, or if you feel unable to, get someone else to do it for you, just what that does in a room, you know, that it's like you can have a thought, but unless you articulate it, you don't kind of know that you know what you know. So the connections that made between the men who came to the group, and what that allowed for them in their own understanding of who they were in relationships. I mean, it wasn't all on the nose, let's write about something that's, you know, really difficult to write. That wasn't the focus of it. But of course, whatever you write about, these things emerge, and to have that witnessed and heard is a really powerful thing.
And
I think.
can you point to any of the people who were on your writing course in the prison who have gone on to writing in any shape or form, or can you sort of see any success stories?
Okay, well that's a really interesting question. I know people have carried on writing, but in terms of publication or whatever, I don't know. But I do know, I mean, even just at a practical level, the fact that they'd got a portfolio of writing that they could take. I mean, Exeter Prison, what a place, that's a whole other conversation. You know, its special measures are in special measures. But it did mean that when guys were going to parole hearings, that they'd got work that they could offer to the court to say, look, I'm really thinking about these things. My understanding is shifting and changing. So I know at a practical level that was already making a difference. Beyond that, I couldn't say. I hope people are still writing.
Well, I mean, you've obviously inspired people, and that's the main thing, isn't it? That you've given them, as you say, given them a voice, and that really helps them to understand themselves better, and hopefully from there, then, you know, become better. I'm going to sort of say better citizens, but you know, I'm not really very well up on that kind of thing. But yeah, that just seems really really, you know, worthwhile.
Yeah, and I think. Yes, I can see your quotation marks around better. I think we just gain understanding, don't we, about ourselves, about other people, and that writing promotes that empathetic, compassionate, creative part of ourselves. Yeah.
So you're a real advocate for creativity as a means of expression.
Absolutely, yeah. And I work with theatre, film, and text. You know, I think that can be in all kinds of formats and ways. But it's just exciting to make something. And when you've got a page and a pen, or you've got your laptop, you know, there was a blank page and then there is something there. It's such an immediate sort of, oh wow, that didn't exist 10 minutes ago.
And I just keep changing it all the time. Every time I look at it, I go, no, I could just tweak that. I could just tweak that. So I do obviously, but you know, I find it difficult to move on. But yes, you're right. Once you actually have taken that thought out of your head and actually sort of hardened it up as something which physically now exists. And the interesting thing is that when you put it out there, it becomes somebody else's property, because once they've read it, they've interpreted it in their own way, and it then becomes theirs. And you know, I when I read books, I see things that the author has sort of visuals that they've created, probably in a very different way to somebody else. And likewise, when I write something and then somebody comes back to me with their comments, I think, oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's a really interesting take on you know what I've created. So it's really interesting, that whole process of creativity and how it affects other people, not just yourself.
Absolutely. And I'm particularly fascinated, I think, by that co-creation that the reader or the audience or the viewer participates in, that we make it together every time those words are read, every time that play is viewed. There's this new object, which is that co-created object. And yeah, those spaces that we leave as writers and makers are crucial, because that is what allows that other person into that space to make it in their own imaginations.
Yes,
it's brilliant, isn't it, Jonathan?
I love it. I love it. I'm working on book 8 at the moment, wow. So you know, I'm really enjoying it. But one of the things that I think is that when you see a film, the film is never, very rarely is the film ever better than the book. Sometimes, but very rarely, because the book is what existed in your head and it's your way of interpreting it. The film is presented to you as a fait accompli, and it's very different for you to sort of absorb that information.
Yeah, adaptations are a minefield. I won't launch into my opinions. I mean, Alan Bates, brilliant casting as the Mayor of Casterbridge, which was an A-level text that I studied, but far from terrible casting. We won't go there, Jonathan, but okay. You know.
Okay. So, you've got let's go back to Word Kitchen.
Yeah.
You have an ongoing programme of events.
We do.
Can you give us an idea, and I can put those up on the Listen Again page?
Yeah, well, absolutely, I can, and we've got a Word Kitchen website as well, so there's information there. It's an interesting and exciting time for us, Jonathan. I mean, the next event that's coming up is June the 10th at the Phoenix, and that's a prose open mic. We're full in terms of readers, but we really, you know, it's so great to have a lot of people in the room listening. It's very much a writers and readers, these are not easy words for me to say, community. So
why not?
I really don't know. Yeah, so there's a lovely networking feel to those events. And it's, well, as you know, Jonathan, because you've been there, it's always a delight to these disparate readings start to develop their own themes and cross communications, you know, between them as the evening goes on. Yeah, so that's coming up on the 10th of June. There'll be a summer social at Brook Kitchen. We haven't quite decided when that is. Two hot off the presses things, one that I can say a bit more about, the other one that is still in development, is that the Exeter Novel Prize, which Kathy Hartigan has developed over the last 10 years, Word Kitchen are going to take on that, which is really exciting. It feels like a very good fit for us, because it's encouraging writing and developing writers as well through the appraisal reports that people can ask for too. So yeah, that's just about to happen. So that's going to be wonderful. Last year at Budley Salterton Literary Festival, we did a kind of pop-up Fang in the main marquee, which was good fun, getting people to do some writing exercises and using our kitchen metaphor, so people could take different ingredients and do a bit of writing and then immediately share it in the microphone. Which, my goodness, the authors who loved that the most were the ones around the age of 10. So they do a bit of writing and then I would read it in quite a serious voice, and much delight was had from that. So this year, this is still kind of in the works, but keep the 17th and 18th of September free, because Word Kitchen are going to be curating a writer's hub, a kind of backstage area with workshops and networking for writers in and around Devon. So that's
17th and 18th of September, right? I shall put it in the diary.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, look, Pippa, thank you so much indeed for coming in and telling us all about Word Kitchen. And it's been really fascinating to hear about how you've developed your writing and how you've helped other people to develop theirs. So thank you very much indeed for coming in, and thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Cheers.